Hey, welcome back. I am so excited for this week. I challenged myself to cook 6 sheet pan meals, all meals that I could prep and cook when I got home from work in the evening, and that wouldn't take a ton of time or have a million ingredients. A few things were prepped ahead of time, but for the most part, I got it all done on the weeknights, and it was delicious still. The first meal I made was cheesy beef taquitos, and I took 2 pounds of ground beef, and this was a higher fat content, but it was on sale, so I had it in my freezer, and I browned that up. Once that was browned, I took a paper towel and I got rid of the grease. Then I took my homemade taco seasoning and added it to the ground beef. Now I have a short that shows how to make this homemade taco seasoning. Next you'll add your water and then you'll bring it to a boil. Then you're gonna cover it and cook it for 15 minutes or so. Mine was still a little watery after the 15 minutes, so I let it simmer a little longer on the stovetop to evaporate some of that water. Now this is optional, but you can add the nacho cheese, which made it just extra cheesy. And then I added a Mexican style shredded cheese as well. Now once that's slightly melted, I started filling my tortillas. Now you could use corn tortillas as well if you wanted to. That would be a really delicious option for this. Now I had a few kids in my family that liked things a little differently, so I did some with just the meat, some had beans in them, some had chicken from another meal I'm doing on this video, and some of the nacho cheese. So you can make it however you want and whatever works for your family. Once they're out of the oven, you can top them and garnish them with the things that you like. These had such good flavor. They weren't dry in the middle. The cheese just really helped with that, and they were just really delicious. Sheet pan nachos are such a good choice for a quick and easy meal on the weeknight. I used Fritos because they are thicker and I didn't want my chips to get soggy in the oven. I also used a Mexican style shredded cheese that was already shredded and a can of black beans. I bought this pre-shredded, pre-seasoned chicken from the store as well to help me save time, and I put that on top. Of course, these nachos are super adaptable and you can adjust it however your family likes it. Then you're just gonna broil that till the cheese is melted. And instead of putting all the toppings on the whole pan, I decided for my family that we could plate them up and put the toppings on that we liked. So I like tomatoes and olives and all that good stuff, but not everybody in my family does. So it's a great idea to just wait and put the toppings on after you pull it, or you put it on your own plate instead of topping it right there on the sheet pan, because you might have people who like different things. But these were great, they were delicious, they were easy, and it just was a great meal for a quick and easy meal to do on a weeknight. Also, check out my short on how to make homemade guacamole. That's amazing. Now, the thing that I wanted for myself in cooking these meals was I wanted something I could come home and cook in a reasonable amount of time and serve to my family in a reasonable amount of time. I did not want to spend a ton of time cooking, but I wanted something that still tasted really good. And one thing that I love is roasted vegetables. They are the best. So I got all these different vegetables and I seasoned them up really well. And then I got out some steak that I had cut and froze. And that saved me a ton of time. I could just stick it right into the vegetables and mix it in with all the seasoning and put it directly onto the pan. Now you could do your vegetables and your meat separately if you'd like. That is one way to do it, but I just wanted something like dump and go, so easy and quick. And that's exactly what I did. So I roasted this up, and I didn't even have necessarily a carb with this meal. I think my daughter ended up making some bread to go with it or something, but it was perfect just the way it was. Roasted vegetables are such a treat. Now I did find that I needed to drain some of the liquid midway because there was some liquid and I wanted to drain it so it could get that real true crispy roast, and it worked out pretty well. I didn't have to drain it all, but I drained enough to make it do less steaming and more roasting. And then I served it up with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and it was delicious. Funny story about this meal. So I also used the chop and froze pork chops that I had put in the freezer, and I put green beans. I had some big ones, so I steamed those a little bit, but then the petite ones I just mixed right in, and I went ahead and steamed these potatoes so that this wouldn't take quite as long. But my son came down when he saw this meal from upstairs to see what dinner was, and he said, "This is the same thing we had from last night." It was so funny because, I mean, it's similar, meat and veggies and seasoning all mixed together. I think he didn't like all his food was mixed together and touching, but I thought this turned out really well. The flavor was really good. I think that next time I will add a little bit of ranch to the actual vegetables to roast them in. I think that would be really tasty. This just called for the ranch seasoning packet or ranch dressing seasoning. So I just spread that out on my sheet pan and roasted it for a little bit, and then I drained the liquid again so that it would steam less and roast more. And then I pulled it out and it was ready to serve. And this one had potatoes with it, so I think we put a little bit of ranch dressing on the side to go with it, and it turned out really tasty. So even though my son thought it was the exact same meal as the night before, it was different and it was really good. Now this meal was delicious. It was so good, and I am definitely going to be making it again. My son actually liked this one too because I didn't mix them all together. So I cut and steamed in the microwave for a few minutes these potatoes. Then I added my seasoning and a little bit of mayo, and then this finely shredded Parmesan. Now you could also use the grated powdery stuff. So I put that down on a third of the cookie sheet, the sheet pan. Then I had this pre-cut broccoli that I bought, and I just broke a few pieces that were too big just so it wouldn't be huge. Added seasonings, fresh garlic, a little bit of oil, same basic seasonings as the potatoes, some mayonnaise, and then the Parmesan, and mix that well and put that on the other third of the pan after I put the Parmesan on, of course. Now for the chicken tenders, I could have just put everything in this bowl and mixed it all together with the breadcrumbs and the Parmesan and everything, but I chose to roll it. So I put all the seasoning and oil and mayo on the chicken tenders, and then I mixed that around so it was well coated, and then I, on a separate plate, put my breadcrumbs and my Parmesan. And it just took a quick minute to roll these tenders in this and stick it on the sheet pan. Now I had more tenders than could fit on the sheet pan, so I made a whole nother tray of just chicken tenders, which turned out really good, even more crispy than the ones that were on this pan, because it didn't have maybe the moisture that this pan had, although I did not have to drain this one. It didn't have standing liquid or anything on it. So I put that in to roast, and then I finished breading the rest of these. But like I said, if you want to save time, you don't even have to roll them individually. I took the remaining Parmesan and breadcrumbs and just kind of patted onto the top of these tenders and stuck those in to roast. When they were done, I pulled them out and it was ready to serve. And like I said, this was such a delicious meal. Like, I loved the seasoning. It was perfect, and just it had the perfect, I don't even know. It was just so good. The goal with this dinner was to have something that was a little bit better than frozen pizza, but not as expensive as takeout. And I found this really, well, I tried 2 different kinds of crusts. This first one came wrapped in parchment paper, which I didn't realize. So I really didn't need my silicone mat on the bottom of my pan, but I already had it. So I just went ahead and peeled it off the parchment and put it on the silicone mat. But in retrospect, I would have just kept it on the parchment because you can cook it right directly on that. Then I buy this already pre-made pizza sauce. If you want to make your own, go for it. But like I said, I wanted to come home from work, make a quick dinner, and not be tired. And for this particular meal, I actually got home at like 7 o'clock. It was so late, and I thought maybe my family had already eaten leftovers or figured something else out. But they were like, "Oh, we thought you were making pizza tonight," because it was on my menu. And so I was like, "Oh, I'm tired. I don't want to make it." But then I thought, this should be super easy. Like, maybe I should just make it, even though it was so late. And guess what? It didn't take long at all, and it was really pretty good. Now, this next dough I used was like that biscuity type dough in those cans. And I've never really used this before, but I thought I'd give it a try. And my family did say it tasted kind of biscuity. So I didn't try this one. But I went ahead and tried to see which would be better, which would be easier. And I made this one up in like my jelly roll pan that's silicone, so it wouldn't stick. And I topped it with what I had. I had olives, I had pepperoni, I had some pineapple, so I just put on what I had. But of course, you can always adjust your toppings to how your family likes it. So that came out of the oven, and since I had my silicone mat under there, I took it off of the pan and put it on a cutting board because I didn't want to cut up my mat. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of school lunch pizza, but it turned out pretty good. I really liked it. So, hey, even if you get home at 7 o'clock in the evening, you can still have dinner in 30 minutes with this recipe. Now we served it with a Caesar salad, and that was that. Awesome. Thanks for watching, guys. I sure appreciate all your support, and I hope to see you next week.